have you ever referred to an album as being great or perfect? If so, what exactly was it about that album that made you think that? Is it just because you like the artist or the band? Or was it because you liked a lot of the songs on the album? Or was it because you didn't have to skip any tracks? Or maybe the artistic value, maybe the transitioning, or how it starts or how it ended. So today we're going to talk about what makes the perfect album and the method that I use to identify what a perfect album is. So let's do it. You know, I very often refer to great albums. I always think about, when I hear it, what I consider is a certain aspect of a perfect album or a great album or parts of an album. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll understand that I value albums. I value the art of creating the album, and I value the art of being able to listen to an album from the very beginning to the very end without skipping any tracks and absolutely loving the album. So I thought it would be a really good idea and a lot of fun to explain how I come to the conclusion that an album is good or great or perfect. So let's get into that. Ever go to a concert and the very first song, they just come out and pick up their instruments and just play like the slowest song in their catalog? Or one that no one's ever heard and it's just not that good? No, you have it. You know why? Because it's going to start off on the wrong foot, and it's not going to set the tone correctly. When you go to a concert, you know, let's say it's some kind of rock concert, they're going to play one of their biggest rock anthemic, energetic, explosive songs they have, because it's going to get you going and it's going to get you ready for the rest of the concert. And that matters when you make an album. The first song needs to get your attention, and it needs to set the tone for the rest of the album. And it needs to tell you, hey, this is what you're looking at. This is what we're going to do for the next 40, 45, 50 minutes. So sit back and enjoy. Really good examples of the very first song of an opening song is Rio by Duran Duran off the Rio album. It's got that very long, drawn out, just ramp up, and then boom, it just gets into the music, and it's really exciting. And I can see that being like the first song that they play at a concert. I don't think it is, but if maybe back in the day, after Duran Duran's second album, that would have been a great song to start with. Also, Let's Go Crazy off the Purple Rain album by Prince is the perfect intro to an album. It starts with the organ, "Dearly Beloved, we're gathered." I mean, it's just brilliant, but it's got that slow build, and then then the guitar comes in, and then it just explodes into this amazing, awesome song that we all love. That's how you start an album. Another way to start an album is maybe like an introductory type song, like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles. That's a really good way to start the album. And the beauty of that is it's almost like a song that's created without any kind of resolution. It's kind of the question, and then it dumps into the next song, which is like the payoff. And I really like when albums do that also. And another way to start an album is like a short, sweet type of song. For example, the Blue Weekend album by Wolf Alice, there's a song called The Beach, very first song. It's almost like the wind up, or, it's just like, getting set in the blocks. And then when it's over and song number 2 comes on, that's boom. That's when you come out of the gate, or you start it. And it's a really good way. I know Pearl Jam has done this too. On their No Code album, they just started with this very just low volume, just very uneventful song, and then explodes into the next song. So that's, there's several good ways to start an album, and these are definitely some good examples. Song number 2, I think, is just as important, because you don't want to, come out of the gates with this really strong, energetic song that gets you going and just kind of flop. You want to continue that same energy, or, if you started with the soft song, this is where you explode with something big that really gets the attention of the listener. So track number 2 is darn close or just as important as song number 1. Number 3, the number of tracks I think needs to be somewhere between 8 and 12. And this is not including like interludes or segues, things like that. I know like Rhythm Nation by Janet Jackson, you look at it, it's got, 465 tracks, but most of those are just segues, interludes, just connecting. And it's a really good album also. And I understand that this is probably one of the most debatable points that I have is the number of tracks, because a lot of you like the double albums or the triple albums, but I just don't think you like them as much as you think you do. Let's take the White Album, for instance. There's a lot of really good stuff on the White Album. I love the Beatles, so of course I like the White Album. But you have your Wild Honey Pies that are just pretty atrocious, and you wonder how the hell did that make it on this album? They just dumped everything on there and said, let's just use it all. And that really messed up the album. And the funny thing about it, it's still considered one of the best albums of all time, according to like Rolling Stone magazine. But imagine if they could have like whittled away, the junk, the fluff, the silliness, and made a serious single album. I think the White Album would be a contender of one of the best albums of all time. I really feel like double albums or bigger really need to be for like compilation albums, best of or greatest hits, or live albums, which is basically the same thing. But otherwise, I like to keep it simple. Number 4, transitions. This is one of my favorite parts of an album. I really, really like it when albums have good transitions between songs. A transition is how one song ends and the next song begins. One of my favorite ways of transitioning from song to song is in a medley form. I know that Pink Floyd is really good at this. They like to join 2 songs together and make it sound like one, but it's actually 2. Another example is how Holiday transitions into Boulevard of Broken Dreams from the American Idiot album by Green Day. That is a really good way. And it doesn't have to be anything overwhelmingly complex. It's just, just a sound from the last song, just overlapping and working into the next song. And stuff like that just gives me chills. I absolutely love that kind of stuff. But, transitions don't always have to be overlapping. Take Sign of the Times by Prince. You have Play in the Sunshine. It's track number 2. And at the very end of the song, it's connected but not overlapping into the next song, which is Housequake. And the great part about this is those 2 songs are vastly different. And the contrast is pretty big, but the way they did the transition, how they did it mattered, and it made it work. And it's a transition that I'll always remember. But all transitions don't have to even come close to touching. Most albums, as we know it, are, a song will play, a song will stop, and then there'll be a few second gap, and then the next song starts. But it doesn't mean that you don't pay attention to how it sounded. You need a natural sound. You need something that tells you, when this song is over, what exactly is your brain wanting at that point? What's going to make sense? There's songs that if you heard them back to back, they just wouldn't sound right. And it just really matters. And you really just have to listen to one song and then listen to the next to know if it worked or not. And I like doing it, especially when I do my reconstruction albums. I really pay attention to that transitioning. I'll put some examples in the description down below of some of my reconstruction videos that I did. Basically, I just take a song or an album and I reconstruct it to make it sound better. I even did it to Thriller by Michael Jackson. And I know most of you go, okay, it's Michael Jackson's Thriller is the best selling album of all time. There's nothing you can do to make it better. I did, though. I actually did. It was the sequence of Thriller is dead wrong, and I fixed it. So take a look. Look at what we have, but if you know the album very well, as soon as the song goes off, your mind is already thinking of that next, the intro of the next song because you just have it memorized. But just kind of wipe that away and listen to my version. If you can make the playlist and tell me that it's not maybe a little bit better. I think it would be. Number 5 of what I think makes a really great album is a great finale. I think the last song needs to sound like it's the last song. I think it needs to sound like this is where I'm going to leave you, and it's going to make people want to listen to the album again. You don't want to end the album lame. Okay, for instance, let's go back to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. A Day in the Life is the last track on the album, and it is absolutely perfect. It's basically in the medley form, and it just has this long, drawn out, and it just has a particular sound that you completely accept as the ending of the song, and once it's over, you're good. Another example of a song that I think needs to be the final song on an album, but they didn't make it the final song on the album, is the Living on the Edge song by Aerosmith. The song is mixed somewhere in the middle, but if you listen to the song, it's got that same idea as Day in the Life. It's kind of drawn out and just keeps going. A lot of redundancy and looping and stuff like that, and it sounds like they're finishing up, but they're not. But if you listen to that song, that I think is one of the best ideas for a song to finish the album with. Another way bands like to finish albums are with like another soft song. Like, for instance, Goodnight on the White Album. I'm just trying to, keep the amount of albums I talk about kind of at a minimum. Goodnight is and it's also called Goodnight, so it makes sense that that'd be the last song on the album. But it's a sweet song. It just kind of just carries it into the abyss. Another one is Find the River from the Automatic for the People album by R.E.M. You just see that very often. I Do by Edie Brickell on her first album, Shooting Rubber Bands at the Stars. It's just very often you hear that last song be something kind of soft, kind of, not the same as the rest of the album. And a lot of bands like to end that way, which is fine. I don't know if I get it, but that's what they do. And the last point I want to make, number 6, to be a great album, I think it's safe to say that you just need good music. The quality of the music needs to be high. I very often think, and I did this whenever I did the Aerosmith reconstruction, I'll put that in the description down below also. I put a weaker song actually at song number 2, but it segued from song number 1 so well, I thought it worked, and it was energetic enough to keep going. And if you can sell weaker songs at particular spots of the album, I would do it. Don't just, kind of push them off to the end, because people will never make it to the end. Or when they get to that song, they'll just shut it off and be done with it. So even weaker songs on a well-transitioned, sequenced album, they'll listen to the so-so stuff also. But an album really, a great album usually has really good songs. So in summary, a great album needs to focus on the following: a great opener and an appropriate follow-up to set the tone. Have around 8 to 12 songs on the album. You don't want the album to be too long. Focus on the sequence or the order that the songs come in. Focus on the transitions between songs. I don't think enough bands do that, especially in the medley form. I love that sort of thing. Have a really great finale and just have good music. And that, to me, is what I'm looking at in the method that I use when I'm listening to albums when I do my rankings. Yes, I know that there's some albums. There are quite a few albums out there that fall outside of this method that I use. But I don't know if there's really that many. For example, Revolver or Rubber Soul by the Beatles. These are considered, especially Revolver, very, very good albums, but they really, besides just having really good music, There's not really much they don't really follow anything else. But you know what? You know why it's such a good album? Because of the Beatles, and the Beatles were really freaking good. And unless you're the Beatles or a band of that caliber, you're probably not going to be able to pull off an album that's going to be great by just writing a bunch of songs and just putting them on there. Because, you know, Beatles, they'll do like 14 songs and they'll still only be like 30 minutes long, and they'll just be in whatever order. And they'll just put, you know, something junky at the end. You know, Ringo, you're last. Nah, I shouldn't say that. I like Ringo. So unless you're the Beatles or a band of the same caliber as the Beatles, you probably need some kind of method on putting your album together. And there's one more reason why an album would be considered great. For example, Rolling Stone magazine has awarded Marvin Gaye's What's Going On album the greatest album of all time. I don't agree. I think that album is really good. I think it's a great album, actually. It's part of my normal rotation. But there's no way in hell that this album is considered... It can't. I just don't think it can be considered the greatest album. It's not better than all of the rest. Marvin Gaye? No, it's just not. What Rolling Stone is doing, they're virtue signaling, and they're doing it because of the message coming out of this album, which is an important message. I'm not going to sell it short, but music doesn't care about the message. Music cares about the instruments and the voice and the artistic value of what you hear. That's all. The other stuff is just emotional stuff that, you know, it makes people like the album or it makes people relate to the album. But besides them virtue signaling, there was really no point in them making it the best album of all time. When they made Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band the best album of all time, I believe that because it was an album that was well put together. I mean, as I described in this video. But so you'll very often see albums considered one of the best of all time because of the message or the history behind it. But I'm telling you, when a kid 40 years from now listens to What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, they're not going to relate to the message. You're just going to say, this is good music or this is bad music. So I don't really subscribe to that. So that's it. That's what I think makes a good album. That's the method I use whenever I'm going through albums to decide if I think it's a good album or not. So what's your idea of a great album? You know, what exactly does a great album need to have for you to say, hey, I love this album. This is fantastic. And name off some great albums. I mean, you know, we have your typical great albums that everybody talks about all the time, you know, the Beatles and Nirvana and, you know, things like that. But what is your idea of a great album? Name the album and tell me why. I would love to hear that. Yeah, let's talk it out down below. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoy the video, but I'm going to use this as a reference going forward. This is the video I'm going to refer back to if I need something explained. So I feel like I did it pretty okay in this video, so we'll see. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you need a new account to follow on Twitter, I've got one. It's called @RedMugMusic. I'm also on Instagram @RedMugMusic. And again, all you people that haven't done it yet, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, share, tell everybody, tell all your friends. Let's grow this channel together. That would be awesome. So I guess that's going to be it for this week. I'll see you guys next time.